everyone, this is Rashonda Thornton, the dietitian that gets diets. And before I introduce you to my podcast, yes, I want to tell you about my virtual nutrition workshop I have coming up in the month of November. It's come from my book called Play to Win the Food Fight. So this is my self-help book on helping individuals disconnect from their emotional connections with food, help them to create sustainable practices and create a new perspective to their life, their nutrition forever. So in regards to this workshop, it will be a 4-part series every Monday in the month of November, and it will be yourself and 9 other individuals. So we're going to keep it intimate because what we want to do is create ways to how we can talk through some of our struggles, we can work through some of our struggles, and we can come out winning. So I'm looking for those who are serious about changing their lives, who want to stop going through the yo-yo dieting phases, and you're ready to make empowering changes that builds confidence. So go to my website. You'll find information on how to register, and you'll find information on how you can be a part of this unique team. Well, it is fall in 2021 and it is getting cooler, but however, we still need to make sure that we're keeping intact our wellness and our health. I want to introduce myself for those who haven't seen me in a while or don't know me. My name is Rashonda Thornton and I am the Dietitian Against Diets, and this is my podcast show. And I want to introduce you to my lovely guest, Dr. Sha-Lai Williams.
Hi, guys.
I want to tell you a little bit about her and then we'll just take it from there. So Dr. Sha-Lai Williams, she got I'll say she got about 4 or 5 hats that you may know on the surface, but I'm sure there's many more underneath. She is an inspirational speaker, a published author, an entrepreneur. She is also a licensed therapist for nearly 25 years of clinical experience. So when we have our discussions, I'm sure you'll understand why. Not only that, she's an associate professor at the University of Missouri, St. Louis. She's passionate, enthusiastic. She's a mother. She's a woman of God. So she has several different perspectives to give us. And so I just want to say I'm very, very tickled to have you on the show with me today.
Thank you. Thank you for the invitation. Happy to be here.
Yes, you're welcome. I will start off really quick to tell you how I even know this lovely lady. So we both just crossed paths doing if you have to guess, a discussion, talking to other women, inspiring and empowering other women. And before we're getting ready to do our own individual talks, we just kind of hung out and we just started talking. And, birds of a feather flock together, and just the energy between us two just made a natural connection. Yeah. And so I have a feeling that this will not be the last time that you see our faces together on any screen. So the topic that we're going to talk about today, because it's so many that we can kind of reach into, but I want to talk about what some of the things Dr. Sha-Lai specializes in. She specializes in counseling and helping people move through their life, and not only just their life, but their life as far as their environmental life, but their emotional and their intimate struggles that they face as well. So we're going to discuss that, but we're going to center our conversation around women.
Yeah.
And yes, women, you guys, you can tune in, but I want to dedicate this time for women because, we are the ones that are always put in positions to where we feel that we have to carry more loads than we should. So I'm going to start off asking you a few questions because I want to pick your brain as to even how you even, when we think about our passion and who we endure to become or what we endure to become, it's never what we thought in the beginning. And somehow it just kind of weaves its way into just folding yourself and evolving to different spaces. So for you to just really find your passion in working with women and empowering them, my question to you is when you first started, did you see your career going this direction? And if so, if not, what pivoted and kind of brought you closer to this focus in this area in your work?
So excellent question. So no, this was not what I envisioned doing when I grew up. Whenever that happens.
I know, right? We're still kind of working on it.
I did know that I wanted to be a social worker.
Okay.
And I just assumed that would mean working with kids and working with families. And so it wasn't until I actually started working with teens that I kind of got more into this whole concept of mental health and what does that mean. Yes.
You've been doing this for 25 years. I got to tag that because mental health just started coming to a rise over the last 5 years, I would say at the most. So the fact that you have seen seen it in the making at an earlier start, that says a lot.
Yeah. Thank you. So yes, in working with the teenagers who were, being referred because of behavior problems or doing things with that their parents didn't like, I noted that oftentimes it wasn't just the kids that needed to be in therapy. Many times it was the families that needed to be involved as well. And so dealing with that kind of stirred up my interest to get my PhD.
Wow.
Yeah.
And even just getting your PhD, how did you feel, what doors did that open as far as even your perspective? I'm sure there's opportunity that came behind it, but how did that just even like showed you how did that provide you with the resources to do even more?
Yeah. The wonderful thing I think about having a PhD is it just makes you think differently. It shifts your paradigm. So when I was doing clinical therapy, I was focused more on in the moment. So I was looking at the symptoms. But after I got my PhD, it's like, okay, let's dig deeper. What is the root cause of these various issues that individuals are experiencing? So I think that's the added component to getting a PhD. It's just kind of getting a richer or deeper knowledge on the whys.
Yeah. And I think the whys that's a very important, like, foundational reason as to, I think people it's never like, my mom used to always say, don't get mad at what a person does. Understand maybe why they did it, because it's a reason as to what happens. And, when it comes to trying to understand a person, obviously there's multiple variations, but not variations, but multiple variables, but it's never just the symptom or the reaction that they provide. It's more so what has led to that moment, which helps you to, I guess, address it. Would you say?
Right. Because if you just focus on the symptoms, then you're not getting to the root. So you address this, one thing, and then next week is something else. And then you address that, and then next week it's something else. Well, that's because we're just staying surface. We're just on the outer level where we need to kind of peel back the layers of the onion a little bit and get to the deeper root. And then hopefully all of the symptoms will go away.
Yes.
Or at least diminish a little bit.
And there are a lot of layers to onions, and we know when we peel back onions, it can be a hard task. Yes, and it can be a scary thing. When it comes to mental health, I noticed, and I like that you emphasize on this. It's not the symptoms. You try to cure the symptoms or help people to cope, but there's something beneath. And I've seen over the last year or so many women that are in the light. I guess more in the limelight. You got professional athletes, you got actresses, you got individuals that you hold at a high regard. They are opening up and talking about how their mental health has affected them or is affecting them. And I think that really breaks down walls, especially for us women, because it shouldn't be taboo. There should be room and space to talk about that.
Right. I completely agree. I think for so long, women have been, the matriarchs, the backbone, the ride or die, the strong one. Like, we've been all of these things, which are great. I'm nothing against any of those things. But sometimes carrying those titles cause us to not be able to express how we're really feeling. So if I'm trying to be the strong one, then I can't be the sad one. If I'm trying to always be the go-to, then who do I go to when I have something going on? So I appreciate as well, as you mentioned, the athletes and actresses and individuals who are in more kind of spheres of influence saying, hey, hold up. Like, let's talk about this. Let's talk about our mental health. Let's talk about mental wellness. Let's talk about these things that have kind of been kept under the rug for a while.
Yeah. And I'm hoping that, younger generation it's not as taboo for the younger generation because we are opening up that pathway. It's more so that the older generation that it's another like component, and we talk about older women, and I like what you said about like, we feel like we have to carry the load. The word strength does not mean that you just put everything on your shoulders and you just push through and you don't crack or you don't show emotion or that's a sign of, like, I guess, weakness. But like I say, women are in a position where they feel like in order for them to be the tough woman or whatever definition of strength is, it has to be like illustrated in those ways. And because of that, they don't even recognize the amount of weight that they're carrying and how it's affecting multiple layers of their life, their health, their stress levels. I mean, I really feel like, when it's not that it's not addressed, when it's not realized, it only is going to perpetuate into other health conditions.
Exactly.
And which means there's new things to address. It's just a continuum.
Right.
And I'm glad that, like, when you're talking about women, like, it's okay to talk about those things, you know?
And I love what you said. So here's the thing. Because I'm a social worker, people often assume, oh, well, you're only dealing with, depression or bipolar or borderline personality. And so when they hear that, they think emotions only. But as you mentioned, these emotional stressors, I'll call them, affect us physically. So sometimes people are like, oh, my head always hurts, or my stomach always hurts, or I'm always tired. And they don't necessarily associate that with a mental health need. They just feel something in their body and they can't understand. Well, I kind of get sleep. Why am I tired? Well, I'm eating. Why is my stomach hurt? And it's really your body manifesting those emotions. So it's all together. It's not, we can't separate it out. It is all together.
Yeah. And if you don't even recognize what it is, you don't know how to even make the first step of change. Now, I know that you work on the academia level, you work in the entrepreneur space. I'm sure you collaborate with other healthcare professionals and organizations. I know in some parts you've also done a little bit like a one-on-one work. Is that one of the things that you do?
Yes, okay. I did in the past. And maybe we'll start again soon.
It's one of those bugs, like you get away from it and you want to come back because you love it. Because you know that intimacy is really sometimes what's really kind of get us down to that change that you're seeking for your clients and vice versa.
Right.
So one thing, in respect to women on the individual level, one of the things that I'm in my profession or what I do as a dietitian, I really lean on the mental perspective and positivity when it comes to nutrition, because that's one of the ringers of how people, I call it, sometimes they self-sabotage their health and their emotional capacity when it comes to coping, and so food typically is one of that. And because of that, women, men, people here in the U.S., I'm sure other countries, they struggle with food and their weight and their body image. And to me, it just snowballs more into whatever they're feeling, it gets exasperated, and because of that, I use nutrition as a form of helping people, looking at nutrition as a form of self-care, like doing something for yourself. Take the time to cook your meal and then cook your family's meal, or get something special for yourself that's for your health, not just taking the scraps. I'm saying that to say is it's all about the self-care, and women tend to feel guilty about that. So the women that you've worked with in the past, like why do you feel women feel guilty to do selfish things for themselves?
I mean, I think it goes back again to being these matriarchs, being these nurturers, being sometimes the helper, which lends to being an enabler. I feel like as women, we are taught from a very early age to take care of everybody else. When you're playing house, you're not playing, oh, I'm gonna go to the spa. You're not, oh, I'm gonna take a bubble bath. You're like, oh, taking care of the baby. Oh, you're cooking a meal. Oh, you're taking care of your partner. Oh, it is ingrained in us to take care of other people. And so when we decide that maybe we can't do that as much, or we need a break from that for our own mental health, that's why we feel guilty, because we have been taught that it's the exact opposite, that I am no longer mothering or taking care of someone if I take just a little bit of space, a little bit of time, a little bit of money for myself.
That's so true, because as mothers, we'll pay anything what our kids need, or we'll drop our day to suffice our spouses, and it comes to whereas our time is rarely there.
Right.
And again, because it's not there, you don't even have the opportunity to just be in the moment of yourself, to just think through why you feel these certain type of ways, and it just get things just add on top of it until you'll probably never be able to address it. And I'm sure, like, we think about our grandmothers, and that generation. I mean, it's more things that was centered around that, but just think about the burdens that they carry, So I just think it's just turned into a generational thing. But like you say, it starts at a young age. We're giving baby dolls. Boys are giving dump trucks.
Right.
They're not giving baby dolls. I mean, so it's like we're already fed to be the caregivers.
That's for sure.
Yeah. So I asked you now about, some of the reasons women feel guilty. What are some of if we can like just break it down to the nuts and bolts, because I know there's gonna be so many women that are out there that are watching this, listening to this, you're not alone in this. We've all have our moments. We
Right.
still will have them until, until we learn that in order for us to work through our struggles, sometimes it's not about the environment. Let's take time for ourselves, and we'll see a lot more than what we thought we would. But with the different women you work with, what would you say has been some of their hardest or most complex struggles? I know that, I'm not trying to not suggesting anything, but I just know it can be their past, their raising, whatever situation they're in now, but what were some more common things that you've seen that women have struggled with?
Yeah. I think you hit the nail on the head. So childhood trauma is probably the biggest issue, because so many things have happened in our childhood. And I know we're not leaving out men, but this holds true for them as well. But women have experienced so much in their childhood that has either been normalized, like this is just happens. People just do this to you. You're just going to get hurt or mistreated in this way. So it's either normalized, or if you do get the courage to talk about it, you're shunned and ostracized and made to feel some kind of way about wanting to address this horrible issue, whatever that may be, that has happened to you. So with women that I've worked with, it's getting through that. That's the seed that you have to dig up and deal with. Again, it's like, I can't deal with the symptoms. I can't deal with the petals that are coming off. We have to go down to the root and be like, okay, this, you're dealing with guilt, hurt, rejection, abandonment, all of these issues because of something or some things that happened early on in your life that you just have not had the opportunity to process in a healthy way.
And like you said, if it's normalized, you don't know any different. So to you, this is okay.
Right.
And I even seen with women, women find themselves in relationships that become patterns. And again, it reflects on when you don't know any different, if it's attracted to that, you're familiar with that in some way, somehow, if it's a comfort zone, you know, whether it's good for you or not, but women find, I've noticed that as another thing. It's a pattern with everything, because even though it's not the best for you, it's familiar.
Right. It's comfortable. It's comfortable. It's like, your favorite pair of flip-flops or something, those feel good. My feet like those. I'm going to put those on.
10 years old.
10 years old, whole, raggedy. You need to throw them away and get another pair. And if you do, you're going to get the exact same pair because it's comfortable. It's familiar. So yes, exactly the same thing in relationships and in different eating, all of those things.
So with that, it's never a one-way thing, one-way first step or one-way approach. Everyone comes with a different story. And that's one thing I noticed. There's no formula that's going to solve everyone's problem, but I would say for women that, either they have not recognized that they're in a situation that if they were to step back, they realize it's not healthy for them, or they're in a situation and they don't know how to get out, whether it's don't have the strength to get out or don't have the means, whatever it is, how have you find your way of helping women, help them to piece together what their next steps can be?
So one question I ask myself as well as other people is, how has this worked out for you? So when you mention sometimes not knowing you're in a situation that is unhealthy, and you ask yourself, how is this working out for me? If it's not, then it's probably not a situation you want to be in. If you can think of a long list of cons and not that many pros, it's probably something you need to reconsider or think about doing differently. Because that challenges that feeling of being comfortable or familiar. So I'm doing it because it feels safe, but is it? Is it working out? And so that is probably the first place that we start with. That is, if it's not working out, then you're open to the possibility of doing something different. Because if they don't see it, as you mentioned, if they don't see it as a problem, I can give suggestions and ideas, theories all day long, but it's not going to go anywhere.
Yeah. And the more you're talking, I just had a Rolodex of women, whether I know them, know of them, or read about them, of how they just are in this constant cycle, and so for those women that know and recognize it, is scared to step out there.
Yeah.
What if you don't find someone that can treat you a certain way? Or what if it's a financial thing and it's worth staying versus and going through whatever it is versus being on your own? So with those type of complexities, you know, how does one even think through like what can be done?
Yeah. You definitely have to make a plan. So as you indicated, all of these are unique situations. There's not one pat answer. So you have the conversation and you talk about, okay, if we're talking relationships, if this is something that is unhealthy and I need to leave, how do we plan that out? You know, if it is a dangerous situation, that's a slightly different conversation. But if it is something where, you know, you just kind of stack some money for a little while or work on your credit or build you a community of other like-minded women or just people who can be supportive of you when you make this next step. So you're not feeling alone or by yourself. So just talking it out and planning it out, not doing anything rash. Because you want to be successful. You make a rash decision. You don't want to
find yourself back.
Coming back. Exactly. So you don't want to make a rash decision and then you're out there like, I've been living in a hotel for a month. Like, I can't afford this. Let me go back. So you don't want to do that. You definitely, whatever the situation is, we would want to talk about it and make a smart plan.
Yeah. And that's good what you said, make a plan, because that even crossed my mind, like, okay, let's figure out how can we logistically move out of this situation, remove ourselves from this situation and be successful.
Yeah.
Because what good does it do to go through to find yourself in a place that you know is not, you know, self-serving or whatnot. So let's just shift from the relationship piece, because I was thinking, now I'm thinking about like just family members or let's say, I mean, it's so many different contributions to women and what they feel they're supposed to do and what they're not, their roles. A lot of times it's about setting boundaries and learning how to set boundaries, learning how to say no. There's a podcast show that I've watched. It's called Women of Impact. And I forgot the lady's name. I'll make sure I put it in the notes, but she's written this book. And it's called like boundaries, setting boundaries of love, or to the extent to where you have to know how to set boundaries. Because if not, you're going to always be overrun or be, you know, you're going to be not used, but you're going to be burnt out because you're helping everyone else, and then you're left with the rubble, you know? So when it comes to setting boundaries, could you speak a little bit upon that in your work?
It made me think about my class. So in my classes, and then I share this with clients or just individuals in general, is the importance of boundaries. And so we can have open boundaries, we can have closed boundaries, and anywhere on the spectrum. I feel like most women are familiar with these open boundaries where it's so loose. You know, if you think of like a fence, if there are some of the boards that are out and any and everybody can come in and out and trespass on your yard, that's not necessarily a good thing. But you don't want it to be so locked down where you have like this metal, you know, fence where nobody can get in and nobody can get out, and it's unhealthy in that way.
And sometimes it causes that extreme.
Yes.
You to go from one extreme to the other.
Yes. So having these kind of like established boundaries that have, you know, a healthy door. So if somebody needs to come in, if that's a wise choice, if that's safe, great. If you need to escort somebody out of your, you know, yard, that's totally fine too. You have this door that they can go out. So yeah, just figuring out for you what that looks like. So boundaries are important. You have to have them regardless, but making sure when you do have them that they are, you know, healthy and appropriate, that they're not based on trauma or hurt or fear, but based on self-care, self-love, what you need in your space. Because again, boundaries are fluid. At some point they may need to be a little more closed off. Some ways they may need to be a little more open, but it is important to have some established kind of non-negotiables. I'll say it like that.
Yeah. And I'm glad you emphasized boundaries are not necessarily about just keeping people out or keeping people at a distance. It's about just creating space. And so that goes back to women being okay with creating space and time for themselves and understanding, what does those boundaries look like in your life? I always, in my work, I try to, there's the word boundaries is not a concrete, it's more of it's subjective. You can't really pinpoint what a definition of a boundary is. So I mean, you're able to kind of create your own boundaries in some of the things you're doing that you wouldn't think that you typically do that you do. And one of it is, building off the self-care component and creating that space, recognize the time that you're using, what is it towards? Because it's not necessarily self-care. It doesn't mean you go to the spa on Sundays or you go on a 2-day hike by yourself in the woods. Those are great, but there's multiple definitions of self-care. And so can you perhaps look at going to exercise, that 40-minute walk as your self-care moment?
Totally.
Can you look at cooking up your food, chopping your vegetables, turning your music on, and just relaxing in that being self-care? Could you look at the time you're taking going grocery shopping, not as a task, but as time for yourself, because you're creating time to create something for yourself. And when you're able to unlock the idea of what creating space means or creating self-care, if you start like slowly just adding some of those new perspectives, me having this healthy meal is self-care to my body. Me going to support my friend in her event, that's self-care of me taking the time to be present. And so I think once we start being able to label some of these things that we feel are monotonous and show them these are our examples of self-care, women can start saying, oh, this is, I'm going to look at this, it's going to take time for myself, and you can be okay with that. And I think the more we keep talking about, creating that space, that's how people can slowly start coming in and being okay with putting themselves first.
Yeah. It's about paradigm shift, right? So, because as you were talking about the example about the grocery store, I was like,
and
I'm gonna try that next time. I'm gonna try that next time.
Yeah, I mean, because I'll put it this way. I'll just maybe build some context behind it. If I know I want to create, obviously being a dietitian, if I want to create a healthy meal, like I look at me going to the store to get those ingredients. Yes, it's not, you're not sitting down getting your feet rubbed, like that. But I look at it as me. It's an illustration of self-care because I'm taking the time to go get the ingredients for myself.
Yeah.
And so if you fold that into your process, you find that there's more opportunities that you can build in self-care. And even if it can start there, you can feel more comfortable doing something like looking at it like that and using that as an expression of self-care. And then that can somehow build on its own to where you find yourself being okay with, having, a budget to where you're going to get a facial once a month, or you're going, with your girlfriends on a weekend, every quarter.
Yeah.
I just feel like it can just be a gateway, but it's just really about the perspective. Like, how are you looking at it? We can look at it like, oh my God, I gotta go to the store and get some smoked paprika again. It's like, really? But it could be, you know what? I'm gonna take my time, put my audiobook on, go in there, pick my smoked paprika up and pick up something. It's all about perspective. Yeah. That's kind of what I'm saying.
Yeah. No, I agree wholeheartedly.
So I have a few more questions. And actually one of them you did answer.
Okay.
But I want to talk about one of the main things you focus on when you're working with women, because we are giving the expectation that we need to be a woman is to be XYZ, when that's not necessarily that should not be put on our shoulders to be represented as a woman. And in order for us to work, especially when it comes to our mental health, is healing, And so one thing I've noticed in some of your language is that you're about like helping women to heal.
Yeah.
So when you're saying healing, I know you talked about boundaries. I know you talked about asking yourself the question is how is this working for myself? What does healing feel like or look like? Or, what would be a definition of going through the process of healing? Because I want women to, it's along their journey of change, healing has to be a component of it. And if you don't see it, that we understand what that means, then we may miss a step.
Yeah. Healing is complex. So healing hurts. Like, let me just say that first.
That's a good way to start off. Like, just so you know, it's not going to feel good.
It hurts.
But it's needed.
And it is needed. And so what does that process look like? It is, again, it's not one of those things where you can just kind of define it and put it in a box. It's not linear. It is truly the epitome of a process, acknowledging the thing that happened or things that happened, how that made you feel, how it made you feel about the person who did it or the person around, how it has impacted your life to that point, how you want your life to be different, forgiveness. Like, there are so many components to healing. But I think the takeaway is, if you take the time to work it and work through the process, even when it's painful, even when it's uncomfortable, even when maybe you have to confront somebody or somebody is not apologetic like you feel like they should be, just keep working through the process, because at the end you will be the healthy whole person that you need to be, and then you can share that with other people.
And I'm glad you said that, because I don't, if you've never even acknowledged how a situation or something that's not positive in your life has affected your life, you wouldn't even know like how it feels to go through the healing process or coming out of the healing process. And I think the expectation is, once you're healed, you're not just gonna, you're gonna gravitate and feel, the wind underneath your feet. Life is always going to be a part of everything. So there's always going to be ups and flows, ups and downs. And so, I think it's good to speak upon, like, when it comes to healing, like, what's the expectation after healing? Is it another perspective to help you to handle things better, help you to recognize your feelings outside of someone else's? Like, what are some things that people that are even understand, like, okay, what comes after healing? Because the whole goal is to be a long-term thing.
Right. So I think what comes after the process of healing, because I don't want it to sound like healing is like the finish line, and that once you deal with this one thing, you are healed, and you will never. I feel like a televangelist all of a sudden, but it is the process. You'll feel like you now know how to navigate the process. That's what healing feels like.
Okay.
So now when this situation or a situation presents itself, I know how to work through it in a healthy way. So it's not affecting me for the next 10 years like this last thing did. I can process it in a day, a week, and I not get suicidal or depressed or anxious or any of these, adverse or, binging and purging or whatever. I'm not responding to it in that way.
Okay.
So healing looks like you now know how to deal with these things that are presenting themselves to you, because you're right, life happens.
That's just so beautifully put, because it's just like, losing weight. Once you lose weight, it's not about just losing weight. It's about living in that healthy space for the rest of your life, or recognizing things that brought you to that place and finding ways to not avoid it, but dealing with it in a healthy way. So it has the same concept as far as going through trauma or going through some sort of like life-changing event, and knowing that there's going to be some other things coming up moving forward, but because you found ways to work through it and recognize your boundaries and recognize how to separate yourself, you can handle it more appropriately, and to where you're not going to come out being the one that has the short end of the stick. So I mentioned earlier to you guys that Dr. Sha-Lai, she is entrepreneur. She actually has an event coming up, a conference, and it really is centered around healing. Actually, the name of it, and I'm going to get it right, it is the Lioness Women's Conference coming up in October 16th, correct?
Yes.
First half of the day from 8 a.m. to 1:30. So when I was reading it, it seemed like it was all about working through that, helping women to work through whatever, it's going to be it sounds like going to be an event where it's not going to be one thing that you focus on. You have opportunities where women can break out into groups and have certain emphasis that they feel meets their needs, So talk about like, what's the dynamics of that, why you created, what's the expectation of like how you see the individual, the women that would be a part of it, and as far as they're coming out of, what are they going to walk out feeling? They're going to feel like a lioness? Because if so, I need to make sure I'm there.
Yes. Come. As we're talking about this process of healing, it is helpful for us to talk about things and when we've gone through it and then share that with people. So I know I have been the person who was depressed, was suicidal. My voice, I felt like I didn't have one, or if I did speak, no one was listening. And so to have just lived this life and come to this place where I now see myself as a lioness, as my voice is important. My voice makes a difference. And I want to share that with other women. I want to share that process with other women. So the Roar Like a Lioness Women's Conference is an opportunity for women to come and hear from other women who have gone through various things. So whether it's, relationship issues, so, I'm single or I'm married or parenting, or I'm dealing with unresolved trauma or addiction or grief, like all of these things sometimes prevent us or hinder our voice. And so it is an opportunity for ladies to come out and have these like targeted conversations, as you said, in an intimate setting, in these breakout sessions, to talk about these things that have personally affected them, and then leave with some tangible tools so that now they can have their voice and use their voice in a way that's beneficial to their family, to themselves, to their family, to their community, beyond.
Wow. Yeah. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah, thank you.
Just like, I'm sure you did not see yourself wanting to build conferences 10 to 15 years ago.
Not at all.
But there's something in your heart that's just driving that. And so going to get the formal education, going to get the experience, you're building that foundation so you can better serve the women or the individuals you're serving. So that says a lot about your work and all your future projects and plans you have in store.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. I'm like, wow. I truly, I'm planning to sign up to go.
Okay, please
yes, for
do.
sure. So
Please
anyone
do.
else out there in the St. Louis area, if you're free on Saturday, October 16th, ask Matt. We'll give you all the information to her website, her Instagram account, that you can go in and learn more. You can register, but I definitely would recommend saving that space on that Saturday to come out here. Yeah. I'm sure there will be a lot, and not just for yourself. You got sisters, aunts, cousins, daughters. It goes across the board, I'm sure.
Yes, definitely.
One more thing I want to ask you before we close. I seen something on your Insta, because
Lord.
Now I know I was gonna like pull up Instagram and do like an Instagram, like a questionnaire, but Instagram was down today for some reason.
Yes,
so
it was.
You were saved by Instagram. But I seen some other projects that you have, and it's called Sister, but the acronym stands for Sharing Intimate Stories That Activate Healing. Is that is a conference kind of a subset of that, or that it has its own space?
Yes, so it has its own space. So Sharing Intimate Stories That Achieve Healing is it's a compilation of stories. So ladies have the opportunity to go to my website, and there are, probably 20 some odd topics or issues that is open-ended. So it's like, have you ever dealt with, we'll talk about, unhealthy eating. Have you ever dealt with unhealthy eating? And they have the opportunity to share their story and how they dealt with that. And then the goal is to compile all of this into a book, because as we've talked about, oftentimes when we're dealing with these particular issues, we feel like we're the only one. We feel so alone. We feel like we're by ourselves. And to have the opportunity to read a book where you see other ladies have dealt with this, and this is how they have come through and conquered it. And if they did it, I can do it too. So yes, that's another project that is near and dear to my heart.
I love all of this. This is like just, I talk about how women, we're, again, it's nothing against guys, men. I love men, and I admire and I respect men, but women, we underestimate ourselves. Yeah. And we don't know how much power we have within ourselves, nor the power of influence we have on other women.
Yes.
So for me, it's all about just linking arms, man. Everyone comes from different places, have different passions, skills. You bring everything to the table, and you'll be amazed at how much strength comes from that. And I think the more centering myself around individuals like you and connecting with people like you and learning about what you do. I mean, that inspires me to, you know, but again, you're creating space for women right now to be able to have those conversations.
Yes.
So that's commendable.
Yeah. Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I'm going to slowly bring us to a close, unfortunately. I do want to create opportunity for individuals to know where they can reach you, connect with you, learn more information about your conference, learn information about your other projects, so they can be a part of this.
Yes. So probably the two easiest ways to connect with me are through Linktree. So Linktree, how that works. .com/doctor, so drshalai, so drshalai, or Instagram, which is at, again, dr_shalai. So if you connect with me either of those two ways, you'll find out about all the things that are going on in my world.
Yeah. And I'll make a point to put all her information on there as well. And we'll even, you have a business email account if someone wants to connect with you or something like that.
Oh, yes. So they can email me. I can try to keep things simple. Dr. Sha-Lai Williams at gmail.com. So again, drshalai Williams at gmail.com.
Okay. And that's good because some people may not be on socials or may not understand the Linktree deal, but they can email you. So
yes, email me.
So she's there and willing to listen and to help you in your journey to change into healing. So please take some time and learn about some of the work that she's doing. And I'm sure she's only at the cusp of the work that she will be doing in the future. So again, Dr. Sha-Lai, I appreciate you coming on, us, had these conversations. I wish that we can keep, I know it's so many other ones.
Right.
Others are popping in my head as I was talking to you. I was like, okay, we got to keep it in this window, keep it in this window. So I'm glad you took the time and just talked about some of the major things that's happening right now and not necessarily what's happening, but why you're doing it. So I appreciate you and thank you again for coming on.
Thank you again for having me.
Yes, you're welcome. Okay, everyone. Well, thank you for taking the time to listen. I hope that this episode really resonated to you. And if you feel it resonated to you, then let it resonate to someone else. So please take a moment to share. This will be, obviously, if you're watching it, it's a video, but we also have an audio version as well. And if you're audio, we have a video version as well. So learn more about Dr. Sha-Lai, learn more about the Dietitian Against Diets. This platform is built to help change individuals' mindsets. We can center around mental health. We can center around nutrition, exercise. There's so many realms of wellness that needs to be addressed. And so this is a place to go to learn and to continue your path. So thank you guys, and I will see you guys next week.